In 1980, a man woke up inside a rusted Rolls-Royce on Los Angeles' Sunset Strip. He had no home, no savings, no degree, no backup plan. He was 36 years old. He had been fired, rejected, and written off his entire life. That morning, he had exactly $700 to his name. And within the next decade, he would turn that $700 into $1 billion empire. This is the story of Paul DeJoria, the homeless man who built two of the most successful brands in American history, a hair care company and a tequila empire. And together, they made him worth over $3 billion. But the money is only half the story. Because the man who once couldn't afford a roof over his head now gives millions away every single year. He traveled to Africa with Nelson Mandela to feed orphan children. He signed the Giving Pledge, committing half his fortune to charity for the rest of his life. This is not a story about luck. This is not a story about being in the right place at the right time. This is a story about a man who was told his entire life that he would amount to nothing. And he proved every single one of them wrong. Paul Jones DeJoria was born on April 13, 1944 in Echo Park, a rough neighborhood on the east side of Los Angeles. His father was an Italian immigrant. His mother was Greek. They were both working-class people, trying to survive in a city that did not make survival easy. By the time Paul was 2 years old, his parents had already divorced. His mother was left alone to raise two boys, Paul and his older brother, on almost nothing. There was no child support. There was no safety net. There was just one woman, doing everything she could to keep her sons fed and clothed. And even as a young child, Paul understood that things were different in his house compared to other families. At age 9, he and his brothers started going door to door, selling Christmas cards and newspapers. Not because they wanted spending money, because his mother needed the help. School was not a priority. Survival was. By the time Paul finished high school in 1962, the situation at home had not improved. His mother simply could not afford to take care of both of them any longer. And so, at 18 years old, Paul DeJoria was sent to foster care. The man who would one day be worth $3 billion grew up without a stable home, without financial security, without anyone telling him he was going to make it. After high school, Paul joined the United States Navy. He served for 2 years aboard the USS Hornet, one of the most famous aircraft carriers in American naval history. The Navy gave him discipline. It gave him structure. It taught him how to work as part of a team under pressure. But it did not give him a fortune. When he came back to Los Angeles, college was not an option. He did not have the money. There was no family wealth to fall back on, no trust fund, no safety net of any kind. So he did what he had to do. He worked. He worked as a janitor, cleaning floors for minimum wage. He worked as a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman, knocking on hundreds of doors, getting slammed in his face more times than he could count. He sold insurance. He sold shampoo door to door. Job after job after job, with no guarantee that any of them would last. And every single one of these jobs taught him something. The janitor job taught him that no job is beneath you. That showing up every single day and doing your best, no matter what the task is, builds character that money never can. The door-to-door sales taught him something even more important. It taught him how to handle rejection. Because in that business, rejection is not the exception. It is the rule. Out of every 100 doors Paul knocked on, the majority slammed shut right in his face. People did not want to talk to him. People did not want what he was selling. And he kept knocking anyway. He said it himself, you have to be just as enthusiastic at door number 101 as you were at door number 1. Because eventually, someone is going to say yes. And when they do, it makes every single no worth it. That lesson, that rejection is not failure. It is just part of the process, would become the foundation of everything he built later in life. Eventually, Paul got a job at Redken Laboratories, one of the biggest and most respected hair care companies in the country. It was his first real entry into the industry. He learned the business from the inside. He learned how products were manufactured at scale. He learned how salons operated day to day. He learned what professional stylists actually needed from their products and what the industry was failing to deliver. And then he was fired. It felt like the end, but it was actually the beginning. After Redken, everything fell apart. Paul's marriage was failing. His money was gone. He had an idea. He wanted to start his own hair care line, but he had no funding, no investors, and no one willing to back him. He had connected with a talented hairdresser named Paul Mitchell. The two of them had a shared vision. They wanted to create a hair care product that was genuinely different. A single application shampoo and a leave-in conditioner that would save stylists time and make their jobs easier. The original plan was simple. They would each own 30% of the company. A third investor would put in $500,000 and own the remaining 40%. That investor backed out. Everything was falling apart. Paul Mitchell was about to lose everything. John Paul's marriage was ending. He gave his wife everything he had, every last cent, and moved out of the house. He was too proud to tell his friends how bad things had gotten. So he did not tell anyone. Instead, he moved into his car. It was a 20-year-old Rolls-Royce. It was not glamorous. It was not comfortable. He slept in it. He ate in it. He lived in it. Parked along Los Angeles' famous Sunset Strip. And it was from that car that Paul DeJoria decided to start a business. He went back to his mother. The woman who had raised him on nothing, who had struggled her entire life, who had loved him even when she could not afford to keep him. He asked to borrow $350. She gave it to him. Paul Mitchell put in his own $350. Together, they had $700. $700. That was the total investment to start what would become one of the most successful companies in American history. With $700, John Paul and Paul Mitchell bought the raw materials to make their first batch of shampoo and conditioner. And then they faced a problem that every new business faces: packaging. They could not afford bottles with colored labels. They could not afford professional graphic design. They could not afford anything that looked polished or expensive. So they went with what they could afford. Plain white bottles. Simple black lettering, no color. No design. Just the name John Paul Mitchell Systems, printed in basic black type. Here's the thing. By accident, it looked incredible. In an industry where every bottle was covered in bright colors and flashy designs, the clean, minimalist black and white stood out. It looked sophisticated. It looked high-end. It looked like a brand that belonged on the shelves of the most exclusive salons in the world. What was supposed to be a budget shortcut became one of the most recognizable brand identities in the hair care industry. But looking good on a shelf meant nothing if no one was buying. So John Paul did what he had always done. He went door to door, every salon in Los Angeles, every stylist he could find. He knocked on doors. He pitched his product. He demonstrated it. He showed stylists exactly how his shampoo worked in one application, saving them time, making their clients happier and making their jobs easier, and he got rejected again and again. But he kept going, door after door, salon after salon, because he knew from years of rejection that the next door might be the one that says yes. One morning, while he was still living in his car, he woke up to someone knocking on his window. It was actress Joanna Pettit. The two knew each other casually. She looked inside the car and saw her friend, essentially homeless, starting a business from the backseat of a broken-down Rolls-Royce. She was shocked. Without hesitation, she offered John Paul a free room in her house. No rent. For 2 months. Just enough time to get back on his feet. It was a small act of kindness. But it changed everything. For the first 2 years, John Paul and Paul Mitchell barely made it. They could not pay their bills on time. They were scraping by. There were days when it felt like the business was never going to work, but they did not quit. And then, in year 3, something changed. The product started spreading. Salon owners who had tried it were reordering. They were telling other stylists about it. Word of mouth was doing what advertising could not. By the end of year 2, John Paul Mitchell Systems had earned its first $1 million. By year 5, they were doing $10 million. By year 10, the company was bringing in over $100 million a year. The growth was staggering. And it was built almost entirely on the quality of the product and the trust of the stylists who used it, not on expensive marketing campaigns or celebrity endorsements. John Paul Mitchell Systems became one of the most successful hair care companies in the world. Not because of luck, but because of a product that genuinely worked and a man who refused to stop selling it. And then tragedy struck. Paul Mitchell, the co-founder, the talented hairdresser who had believed in the vision from the very beginning, was diagnosed with cancer. He passed away. John Paul took over the company completely. He honored his partner's legacy by continuing to build what they had started together. And he made a decision that would define his leadership for decades to come. He would never lay off an employee. In over 40 years of running John Paul Mitchell Systems, the total employee turnover has been less than 100 people. And 2 of those were retirements. In an industry where companies cycle through staff constantly, DeJoria built a culture where people stayed for their entire careers. Today, Paul Mitchell products are sold in more than 150,000 beauty salons across 87 countries. The company generates close to $1 billion in annual revenue. All from $700. In 1989, 9 years after starting Paul Mitchell, John Paul DeJoria was already a success story. The hair care company was thriving. His name was known in the industry. He had proven that his approach, quality product, loyal customers, zero corporate waste, worked. But he was not done building. His friend Martin Crowley had traveled to Mexico and discovered what he believed was the smoothest tequila he had ever tasted in his life. He came back to the United States with a simple idea. Let's build a brand around it. John Paul invested. And together, they founded the Patrón Spirits company. The goal was straightforward. Create a tequila that was genuinely better than everything else on the market. Not just good, not just premium, the absolute best. They found a distillery in Mexico. They hired local workers, over 1,000 of them. And they made a decision that would set Patrón apart from every other tequila brand in the world. They would not pollute the land. John Paul spent millions of dollars ensuring that Patrón's production process was sustainable. Recycled bottles. Leftover distilled water used to fertilize the surrounding land. It was not just good ethics, it became part of the brand's identity. In its first year, Patrón grossed $1 million every single month, and then it doubled. Year after year, Patrón grew into the world's #1 ultra-premium tequila brand. It was not advertised through traditional channels in the beginning. It spread through word of mouth, through friends like Clint Eastwood, who featured it in his films, through Wolfgang Puck, who introduced it to his restaurant guests, through Paul Mitchell events where it was given away for free. The same strategy that built the hair care empire, quality product, word of mouth, no massive advertising budget, built the tequila empire too. By 2018, Patrón was selling over 2 million cases per year, and then Bacardi came calling. On January 22, 2018, Bacardi purchased Patrón Spirits for $5.1 billion in cash. $5.1 billion. The man who once borrowed $350 from his mother to start a hair care company had just sold his tequila brand for over $5 billion. John Paul DeJoria could have stopped there. He had more money than most people could spend in 100 lifetimes. He had proven every person who ever doubted him wrong. He had built 2 of the most successful consumer brands in American history. But that was never what drove him. In 2011, John Paul signed Bill Gates and Warren Buffett's famous Giving Pledge, a public commitment to give away at least half of his lifetime earnings to charitable causes. He founded JP's Peace, Love, and Happiness Foundation, a hub for his philanthropic work that has supported more than 160 charities around the world. In 2008, he traveled to sub-Saharan Africa and joined Nelson Mandela in an effort to feed over 17,000 orphan children through an organization called Food for Africa. That same year, his Paul Mitchell company helped provide over 400,000 life-saving meals for children in need. He co-created Grow Appalachia, a program that provides seeds and tools to help struggling families in 6 states grow their own food to fight malnutrition. He became a supporter of Sea Shepherd, the Marine Wildlife Conservation Society that confronts illegal poaching in the world's oceans. A ship was even named after him, the John Paul DeJoria II, and through his foundation he has raised millions upon millions of dollars for causes he believes in. The man who grew up in foster care, who slept in his car, who was told his entire life that he would never amount to anything, became one of the most generous philanthropists in the world. John Paul DeJoria's story is not about talent. It is not about connections. It is not about being handed an opportunity and running with it. It is about what happens when a person refuses, completely and absolutely, to accept the life that the world has decided for them. He was rejected hundreds of times. He lost his home. He lost his marriage. He was fired from the one job that gave him real industry knowledge. He was written off by people who should have helped him. And every single time, without exception, he got back up. $700. That is all it took to start. Not 700,000, not 7 million, not a family trust or a wealthy relative or a lucky inheritance. $700. Borrowed from his own mother, a woman who could barely afford to feed herself. And today, Paul DeJoria is worth over $3 billion. He has built $2 billion companies from the ground up. He has given away tens of millions of dollars to help people around the world who are struggling the same way he once did. The next time someone tells you that you are not enough, that where you come from defines where you can go, remember the man who slept in a Rolls-Royce on Sunset Strip and turned $700 into a legacy that will outlast him. Because if Paul DeJoria can do it, there is no excuse left for anyone.